You know that gnawing feeling deep in your gut, that voice whispering you're throwing your life away. Yeah, that one. The one you've been drowning out with Netflix binges, endless scrolling, and keeping yourself so damn busy you can't hear your own thoughts. Here's what nobody wants to tell you: that feeling isn't your enemy. It's your soul screaming for help. You've probably labeled it anxiety. Maybe some doctor slapped a depression diagnosis on it and handed you pills like candy. Take this twice a day, call me in a month. And sure, the edge comes off. But that voice, it's still there, muffled but persistent, like someone banging on a basement door you've locked and forgotten about. Carl Jung, and this guy knew more about the human psyche than most people know about their own reflection. He had a radical idea. What if your mental illness isn't actually illness at all? What if it's your mind trying to save itself from a life that's slowly killing your spirit? Think about it. You wake up, shower, commute to a job that feels like psychological torture, smile through meetings that make you want to scream, come home exhausted, repeat. Meanwhile, your authentic self is suffocating under layers of should do this and have to be that. Your soul is literally staging an intervention, and you're medicating it into silence. Jung called this neurosis, but not the way your doctor does. For him, neurosis was your psyche's desperate attempt to course correct. Like a car alarm going off because someone's breaking in, except the thief is the life you're living and the car is your authentic self. If you're still watching this, something inside you recognizes this truth. You're tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. You're exhausted from wearing masks that feel heavier each day. Hit that like button if this is hitting different, because what I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you think you know about healing. The medical system wants you functional, not fulfilled. There's a massive difference. Functional means you show up, produce, consume, don't cause waves. Fulfilled means you're actually living according to who you are, not who the world demands you to be. You walk into that sterile office, describe feeling disconnected, empty, anxious for no apparent reason. 15 minutes later, you're walking out with a prescription and a label. Boom. Problem solved, right? Wrong, dead wrong. What they're not telling you is this approach treats symptoms while completely ignoring the disease. It's like turning down your smoke alarm instead of putting out the fire. The alarm isn't the problem. The burning house is the problem. Jung understood something revolutionary. Most modern psychological suffering doesn't come from broken brain chemistry. It comes from living a broken life. When you ignore your deepest calling, when you silence your authentic impulses, when you live according to other people's expectations instead of your own truth, your soul gets sick. And since your soul can't exactly send you a text message, it speaks through your body and mind. Panic attacks become its emergency broadcasts. Depression becomes its way of saying, this life is not sustainable. Anxiety becomes its constant reminder that you're off course. But instead of listening to these messages, we're trained to silence them immediately. Pop a pill, get back to normal, keep the machine running. But what if normal is the problem? What if normal is a soul-crushing routine designed to keep you compliant rather than alive? Your anxiety isn't a malfunction. It's your inner wisdom trying to tell you something crucial. Your depression isn't a chemical imbalance. It's your psyche's way of saying, we can't keep living like this. Subscribe if you're ready to hear what your soul is actually trying to tell you, because this gets deeper. Jung warned about something terrifying. When we medicate symptoms without understanding their message, we create zombies. People who look fine on the surface but are spiritually hollow inside. They function, they produce, they smile on cue, but they're not really living. This mass medication approach is a reflection of something darker, a culture so afraid of discomfort that it's lost sight of suffering's transformative power. We've forgotten that pain often signals growth, that discomfort can be the birth canal of authentic change. For Jung, suffering wasn't just necessary, it was sacred. It was the doorway to individuation, the process of becoming who you really are instead of who you've been conditioned to be. But modern society treats any discomfort as pathological. Feeling lost, take this. Feeling empty, take that. Questioning your life choices, here's something to make those inconvenient thoughts disappear. By running from suffering, we also run from the chance to transform. We stay stuck in lives that slowly drain our life force while telling ourselves we're managing well. The question haunting me is this: how many people are being chemically silenced when they should be spiritually awakened? How many authentic journeys are being cut short by treatments that prioritize compliance over consciousness? Comment below if you've ever felt like medication helped your symptoms, but didn't touch that deeper emptiness. Because what I'm about to reveal will explain why so many people feel more disconnected than ever, despite having access to more resources than any generation in history. We're living in the most connected yet isolated time in human history. More entertainment, more comfort, more opportunities than our ancestors could have imagined. So why does everyone seem so miserable? Jung saw this coming. He understood that the problem isn't just individual, it's cultural, structural, systemic. We're embedded in a society that glorifies appearance while starving essence, that rewards efficiency while ignoring the soul. From birth, you're programmed with a script. Study hard, get a safe job, buy things, look successful, hide your struggles. Follow the formula and happiness will follow, right? Except it doesn't. Because the formula was never designed to fulfill you, it was designed to use you. We're conditioned to believe our worth comes from external validation. Your job title, your salary, your social media metrics, your relationship status, these become the measuring sticks for a life well lived. But Jung knew this was a trap. When your self-worth depends on external standards, you're permanently vulnerable to emptiness. Because external validation is like junk food for the soul, it gives you a quick hit but leaves you hungrier than before. Meanwhile, your authentic self, your intuition, your natural rhythms, your unique way of being gets buried under layers of should and must and have to. You lose touch with what actually makes you feel alive. This disconnection isn't accidental. Disconnected people are easier to control. They consume more, question less, follow orders without resistance. They make ideal workers and consumers but terrible human beings. And when they finally crack under the pressure, when anxiety, depression, or burnout hits, the system has a ready response. Not truth, not authentic healing, but palliatives. Quick fixes that get you back to producing without addressing why you broke down in the first place. Jung insisted that healing requires confronting the world that wounded you. Understanding how you were conditioned, what parts of yourself were sacrificed for acceptance, what dreams were abandoned for security. This is painful work because it means admitting you've been living someone else's life. That you've shaped yourself to fit a mold that was suffocating you. That you've been domesticated by a culture that fears authentic human expression. But it's also the only way out. Because only by recognizing how you got lost can you begin finding your way back to yourself. Tag someone who needs to hear this, because what comes next is the journey Jung called individuation, the most important process any human being can undertake. There's a moment when the mask becomes unbearable, when pretending to be someone you're not feels like spiritual suicide, when you realize you're living as a shadow of who you could be. That's when individuation begins, Jung's term for the hero's journey of becoming who you actually are. This isn't self-help nonsense about positive thinking and vision boards. This is a deep, often brutal process of psychological archaeology, digging up all the parts of yourself you've buried, denied, or forgotten, facing the aspects of your personality you've learned to hide. Individuation means stopping the performance and starting the real work of living authentically. It means confronting your personal unconscious, all those unresolved traumas, suppressed desires, inherited beliefs you've never questioned. But here's where it gets really challenging. You also have to meet your shadow. That dark, instinctive, politically incorrect part of yourself you've been taught to shame. The anger you never express, the jealousy you pretend doesn't exist, the selfish impulses that embarrass you. Jung said something profound. One who looks outside dreams, one who looks inside awakens. Looking inside means facing your shadow without judgment, without trying to fix it or spiritualize it away. Why is this crucial? Because your shadow, when ignored, controls you from the darkness. It leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, self-sabotage, mysterious mood swings. But when you integrate it consciously, it becomes a source of power, authenticity, and vital energy. You can't live an authentic life while fighting against half of yourself. Individuation is about becoming whole, not perfect. Real, not acceptable. This process reconnects you with what Jung called the self, not your ego, but the deeper organizing principle of your psyche. The part of you that knows who you are beneath all the conditioning. When you start living from this center, everything changes. Your choices align with your values. Your relationships become more genuine. Your work feels meaningful. Even your suffering transforms from pointless pain into purposeful growth. But here's what stops most people. Individuation can be lonely. It often means outgrowing relationships, leaving familiar environments, disappointing people who preferred your mask to your authenticity. Drop a comment if you've ever felt the pull toward authenticity but feared the cost of change. Because what I'm about to share explains why so many people stay stuck in lives that slowly kill their spirit. Look around. How many people do you know who seem to be sleepwalking through life, going through the motions without any real engagement, passion, or purpose? Jung recognized this as the defining crisis of modern existence. Life has lost its meaning. And I'm not talking about cosmic, philosophical meaning. I'm talking about personal purpose. The felt sense that what you're doing matters, that your existence has weight and consequence. This absence of meaning isn't accidental, it's programmed. We've been taught to find identity through external achievements rather than internal alignment, to measure success by social metrics rather than soul satisfaction. Jung noticed something remarkable in his practice. When patients began building meaningful lives, not when they took medication, not when they made more money, but when they found their why, their symptoms often disappeared naturally. Because here's the truth. You can endure almost any suffering if you know why you're suffering. But without meaning, even the most pleasant experiences feel hollow. We're experiencing an epidemic of meaninglessness. People exhausted not from too much work, but from work that feels pointless. Lives packed with activities but empty of direction. Jung understood that humans need to feel connected to something larger than themselves. They need to sense that their existence matters, that their choices have consequences, that their lives contribute to something meaningful. Without this, people collapse internally. They become disoriented, reactive, desperate for anything that might fill the void: substances, shopping, social media, sex, success. But none of these distractions can substitute for authentic purpose. The truth many are avoiding. They're living lives they never consciously chose. Careers that pay well but violate their values. Relationships that look good but drain their energy. Routines that provide security but erase their individuality. Your body knows when you're off course. Your mind rebels against meaningless patterns. Your soul contracts when forced into shapes that don't fit. But there's no medication for existential emptiness. Because what's missing isn't serotonin, it's direction. Not dopamine, but identity. Share this video if you've ever felt successful on paper but empty inside, because what comes next is Jung's solution. Reconnecting with the unconscious parts of yourself that hold the keys to your authentic purpose. Most people want healing but refuse to pay its price. Because real transformation doesn't start with positive affirmations or habit changes. It starts with a descent, a deep dive into the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Jung taught that there's no genuine healing without engaging the unconscious. But what is this unconscious? It's not just repressed memories or childhood trauma. It's an entire universe of forgotten parts, your authentic impulses, deepest fears, most painful truths. Everything you've tried to ignore is waiting there. Here's why this matters. What you don't face in the unconscious starts governing your life without your awareness. Jung was clear. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You think you have bad luck in relationships, but you're unconsciously repeating destructive patterns. You believe you're sabotaged at work, but you unconsciously fear success. You feel like a victim of circumstances, but you're being controlled by unexamined parts of yourself. The unconscious is like a dark mirror. It reflects who you actually are, not who you pretend to be. That's why it's terrifying. It shows truths that hurt, reveals the facade behind your carefully constructed identity, demands you abandon the illusion of control. But here's the paradox. This confrontation is where healing lives. The more you deny the unconscious, the more it dominates you. You become reactive, impulsive, fragmented. But the more you integrate it, the more whole you become. Jung called this expanding consciousness, and it only happens when you stop running and start listening. Through dreams, symbols, art, meditation, honest self-reflection. The unconscious doesn't speak logically. It communicates through images, emotions, sensations that seem to come from nowhere. But it's not nothing, it's you. The part locked away, waiting to be recognized. When you begin listening to this part, everything shifts. You see yourself clearly, understand your decisions, embrace your wounds, reclaim your power. Because as long as you don't know what inhabits you, you're a hostage to others, to the past, to expectations. But when you courageously engage the unconscious, you begin liberating yourself. You realize anxiety isn't your enemy, it's a message. Sadness isn't weakness, it's a sign that something needs to die for something new to be born. Like this video, if you're ready to stop running from yourself. Because what I'm about to address is the final barrier between you and authentic living. The fear that keeps most people trapped in lives that slowly drain their soul. There comes a moment when you must choose. Not just any choice, but the choice. The one that separates who you are from who you were programmed to be. The one that determines whether you'll continue living a borrowed, numbed existence or finally commit to your own soul. If you've made it this far, it's not coincidence. Something inside you is stirring. Maybe it's still a whisper, maybe it's already screaming, but it's there. This call won't disappear because it comes from the most honest part of who you are, the part that refuses to accept that life is just work, obligations, distractions, and survival. Jung said the greatest privilege of life is becoming who you really are. But he also knew this is the most avoided path, because it requires abandoning everything comfortable, predictable, and superficial. It demands facing deep fears, confronting shadows, questioning everything you've accepted as truth. That's precisely why this path is sacred, because it transforms, because it truly heals. Most people will choose autopilot. They'll prefer numbness to clarity, accumulating possessions and distractions while rotting inside. But you don't have to be another statistic. You can choose to stop wasting your existence. Choose consciousness over anesthesia. Choose to build a life that actually makes sense, a life that's yours. I won't lie, it won't be easy. It will hurt, confuse, require difficult endings, but it will also liberate you. And there's nothing more powerful than an awakened soul living authentically. When you start living according to who you really are, you become unshakable. You stop asking permission, stop comparing yourself, stop losing yourself trying to please people who will never understand you. So I'm asking you now, what do you need to release to start truly living? What lie are you still telling yourself? Drop your answer in the comments below. The simple act of writing it is already a step out of numbness, a gesture of presence, of choice, of awakening. And if this video stirred something in you, if it touched a wound or ignited a spark, then subscribe and watch what comes next. Because if you've made it this far, you're ready to go deeper. And now more than ever, it's time to continue this journey.